All right, well, it seems that we're live again. One more time. Sorry, folks. We're broadcasting live from our beautiful Mexico City offices at Nearsoft. And today we have Alex Bunardzic in Vancouver. Hi, Alex from Mexico.
Hi,
You there?
hi, Carlos. Hi, everyone. Great to see you
Excellent. Likewise
again.
here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we talked
again, you were
last year.
with us. Yeah, you were with us last year, and well, today I believe that you're going to be talking about a whole bunch of cool stuff that you have in store for us, folks. By the way, Alex is a developer, and he's part of the research and development team at Staples. And Alex is going to be has chosen quite a topic for today. By the way, I wouldn't before I forget. Definitely, I mean I wouldn't forgive myself if I did, but I want to thank my fellow Nearsoftian Kim Lantis for having agreed to be here with us today as a co-host. Kim, welcome to the show, and this is your first co-hosting, right?
It is. It is. Thank you, Carlos. I'm glad to be here, and thank you, Alex, for letting me put on some training wheels with you. So I'm excited.
Excellent. So are we, Kim, to have you here. Thank you so much. And okay, let me go back to Alex. Alex, I understand you have chosen quite a topic for today, of which we have been having a very interesting couple of conversations, and today's topic is titled, Are You Ready for the Bot Disruption? Now, talk about a catchy, sticking name because, it catches my eye. For me, especially as a non engineer, it's like the bot disruption. Wait a minute. So, this phrase alone conjures images of Matrix or something along those lines, right? So it's kind of cool. But let me ask you the first question, Alex, if I may, is why did you choose this particular topic? So let's start by that, and I'll then pass on the mic to you. Welcome, folks, to Are You Ready for the Bot Disruption talk of the day? Alex.
Thanks, Carlos. Well, in a way, the topic chose me because many people have already noticed that this year, 2016, is almost like the year of when the bots made their appearance in the mainstream. Everybody's talking about the bots. All the big players, Facebook, Microsoft, IBM, Apple, Google. It's almost impossible to not be aware of that explosive emergence of bots. And even before that happened, I was kind of interested. But right now, I don't think we can ignore this topic because it's hitting us from all sides. And the technology is becoming really pushed on us, and I think we need to talk about it, understand where it's going, what are the positive sides and possibly some negative sides, so that we can preclude or prevent some unwanted side effects. And I think it's a good time for us to sit down and talk about it, examine it, and see whether we differ in opinions or whether we agree in certain things, and where do we go from here. Um, in
Perfect.
particular, what's happening, what I think is very significant is the economy of scales, where we have, for example, Facebook with their platform Messenger, which has surpassed 1 billion active users, which means there's over 1 billion people spending their digital minutes on the Messenger, texting and interacting with the emerging bots, which is in my opinion, a point of no return. I don't think we can say, oh, wow, this was a wrong turn, let's go back. Feels like this is it, and we have to deal with it. And we need to be careful how we approach it, and we need to understand it rather than just hoping for the best and keeping our fingers crossed. So I really would like to get any people kind of involved and discussing this, offering their opinions or asking questions or criticizing and trying to find what doesn't work or what's potentially not as desirable versus what we could really say, oh, this is a good idea and let's really try and get it better and better. So I feel we're at this crossroad in the summer of 2016. I feel that there's going to be more and more funding and research and development and building is going to explode. And in a way, this juncture right now in time really reminds me of where we were about 20 years ago when the web kind of became the mainstream. It hit the households, it hit the corporations, and we were sitting and wondering, how is this new phenomenon, World Wide Web, going to play out, and what is it going to bring, and is it going to be all positive? And even today, the jury is out as far as the mobile computing and being online all the time. Is it beneficial? Is it detrimental culturally and economically and whatnot? It's human, existence never
it's an interesting comparison.
Always complex, always.
It's an interesting comparison that you bring up.
Yeah, it really reminds me.
The World Wide Web. Like, I remember, I'm 34 years old, and so it first started come out when I was in junior high school, and I can actually remember the dialing up, and I can hear it in my head. And I think now my daughter, who is almost 5, and it's something that she has no idea and will never have any idea what it is to live without the internet. And so when you mentioned earlier about bots and kind of reaching that point of no return, so in 20 years, I wonder if my daughter's children, my grandchildren, will they not even know what life was without a bot?
Yeah. Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. No doubt.
So
but, at the same time, when you think about, I was there when the web hit the mainstream, and I remember how confused we were and how it was incredibly difficult to envision which way is it going to go. And also there was a lot of, not only from the sort of individual perspective, but from the business perspective, where a lot of people were skeptical, a lot of people were exaggerating, and a lot of people minimizing, and the truth is always somewhere in the middle. But it really it's proven to be a very, very powerful advancement of human technology. Had opened up so many doors and given us so much power, positive and negative, with the crowdsourcing and social media and Wikipedias and all that fantastic stuff, and then the dark side of it as well. But we need to deal with it, and this is unstoppable. But at the same time, the awareness is very important. We need to try and be as aware, as informed as we can, and not fall victim of, because there's also a lot of manipulation, and there's always a dark lining to that with people who are not necessarily well-meaning or who just want to control as much as possible. And therefore, I think it helps if we are well-informed and we understand what's going on. I don't think that this is something we can kind of sit on the fence and say, let's wait a few more years and see how it plays out, because by that time it may be already too late. And that's why I propose this topic, and I'm hoping we can get a little bit in depth and talk about all these issues that you, Kim, and you, Carlos. So I'm open to having this discussion going in any way you feel is suitable. We could go more into cultural aspect of it, or more into technical, or mixture, and also depend on the questions we're getting from the participants and people who can contribute and steer this conversation in a direction they feel is suitable.
Absolutely. Yeah, actually, I think it's going to be a combination of both. We can approach it from the technical side and also from the business side of the equation. At least the latter would be very of interest to me personally because of what I do. But there's a number of questions that are starting to pop into my head, and right now, what I'd like to ask you first is specifically, you used a term that definitely got my attention, and this is conversational commerce. So if you would, could you please elaborate on a little bit about what you mean by conversational commerce?
Yes. Just to give you a little bit of preamble to that, the high-tech computers and software originally were text-based when they came, but in order to be able to communicate with computers, you had to have a degree. You had to have formal education, and it's a very, very strict and syntactically regimented way of how do you issue a command to the computer? And it was unrealistic to expect the population at large to learn and gain those skills. So for us to be able to adopt at large, we had to replace text with something that resembles physical objects, which would be your graphical, your desktop, the simulacra of your desktop, or things that look like file folders, things that look like objects that you can manipulate on the screen, and therefore get things done through the graphical user interface. So this regimen of graphic user interface has its limitations. It's very proven to be very powerful in popularizing computers and getting them into everyone's household and now in everyone's pocket via the smartphones. But the downside of that is that it takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of huge learning curve for everyone to learn, because every application and every website is different, and you have to, anytime you have to approach a new product, you have to learn the foibles of the navigation. They have different graphical controls, and it is a counterintuitive experience. With the development of technology and the advancements in artificial intelligence, AI, we reached a point where we could now go back to text. But in this iteration, text is not so strict and so formal. It could be a bit more informal, in other words, conversational, so that you could, same as we are chatting with our coworkers, with our friends and family, we could theoretically chat with computers, and we can ask them to do something or to tell us something in a kind of natural language fashion, without having to really understand the syntax, and if you type one character wrong, then nothing works, etc., etc. Nowadays, we're building technology that is more resilient and is more tolerant to things being a little bit vague, not so necessarily syntactically correct, but nevertheless, we can send a request to the computer that is formatted the same or similar way you would ask your friend, but the computer will be able to actually understand what you're asking it and process it and come back with an answer. So that is the origin of the term conversational. And I will apply that to commerce, and we can have a situation where various e-commerce operations can offer to their clients or customers the ability to ask questions or try and accomplish something by using natural language, same as chatting. And this is what's happening now with Facebook Messenger and other chatting platform where people can now, while they're chatting with their friends, they can also engage in conversation with some bots, sending them text messages. I don't know if that answers your question, Carlos.
I'm sorry, I was on mute, and that happens a lot. Apologize. Yeah, it certainly does, Alex. I really appreciate it. And okay. Just a quick pause to remind the audience to send us their questions. It's right there on our page in the player. You see the chat window. Just type in your question, and we'll read them off. We'll read it back to Alex. Kim.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So I think we can understand like some of the real life applications for bots. So we mentioned commerce, the idea of chatting with a machine rather than a human. I mean, obviously some immediate benefits come to my mind: cost efficiency, the idea to be able to man your forces or supply support for 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. But what are some other applications that you might have in mind? And then also, if we could talk a little bit about what's behind that, like what does a bot do? How does it function? Is it scripted? Is there that scripted software? Or when you mention artificial intelligence, like how are we making a computer or a machine think for us?
The thinking part is still under a big question mark, but what we are aiming at is softening the computer so that they can deal with, looser language. It doesn't have to be very, very regimented. And for that, the computer will have to have access or ability to process huge variety of similarly formulated sentences or text messages. There's many ways how we humans greet someone, or how we agree with something, how we disagree with something. We formulate in various slightly different forms, and for us it's not a big deal. We have, common sense is our main characteristic. But machines are mighty confused. If something deviates, then they think it's wrong, right? So everything has to be just so. So the challenge is now to teach machines how to not be so strict, and how to take variety of different looking messages, which all of them boil down to one intent, which is, for example, no, I don't want that. Many people will formulate in different ways. No way, forget it, forget about it, don't care. To a machine, that is not necessarily obvious. What is the intent of that message? So we need to, with bots and artificial intelligence, we need to teach them and get them to the point where they're reliably recognizing that, oh, I get it, this person does not want that, so I'll stop. Or this person actually wants more, and many other different intents and sentiments, etc. So when we teach machines to do that, I wouldn't say that we have reached a level where they are thinking. They're not thinking. They're just being much more friendlier and much more human-centric in how they process our requests. Before that, machines were not human-centric, and we had to tell them exactly in the way they expect what you want them to do, and they will do it. If anything deviates, they will just break. And what we are now at the very early stages, where we are trying to get to the point where it can actually take a lot of different ways that people talk, even in different languages. It can be German, it can be Japanese, and then understand what was the actual intent behind that message, and then reliably process it and come back with an answer, or accomplishes what we asked it to do. So that's the first kind of foray into what we are trying to do here, and it's still challenging. It might look on the first kind of glance, oh, not a big deal, but it's phenomenal how diversified and kind of playful human language is. And oftentimes, depending on the context, the same message could be interpreted differently, sarcasm, etc. These are huge challenges, actually, to overcome.
Yes, and not only the actual language, English, for example, but the cultural implications behind that. I mean, you can speak English in the South of the United States and the Northwest of the United States and have different meanings for different things. Or me living in Mexico now, with Spanish being obviously the primary language, and you look at slang and things, Mexico versus El Salvador and Honduras and Spain, and even that it's Spanish is Spanish, right? But it's not. English is English, right? But it's not. And so it's not just a language barrier, it's a cultural barrier, and that idea of understanding humanity behind it. So you talk about human-centric. So it's basically the developers, the programmers, that would then input that humanness into the machine.
Yeah.
But the machine's advantage is the ability to recognize and process things in much faster, widespread scale than we as humans would be able to.
Correct. So what is different now from the traditional software is, when you build an app or a website or a mobile app, that app is focused on serving the business, and it's now enabling people to using that app to serve themselves, to accomplish something, instead of having to call a human operator. With bots, the focus is more on the humans, not so much on the business. So the bot is interested in understanding what humans actually mean, and also learning from them, and are very keen on kind of growing into that role, so that that they retain and leverage the experience, the prior experience. So, for example, a website, when we go to any website, it really does not care about us. It behaves as if it's the first time we ever visited it, even though we may have visited for thousands of times. To the machine, they don't care. Bots will, upon initial contact, try some information about us, and upon subsequent contact, it will remember, it will build on that, and will keep building and try to understand you better and better, and learn about your specific, proclivities and foibles and preferences, etc., etc. So it's unique. So the actual interaction with that bot will be unique per person, not per the business behind the bot, right? And that's very different.
But is it? The bottom line is still the dollar. There's still a business behind it. Is it just tricking you into thinking it's about you when it actually really is about the business?
Well, yeah, I mean, but
talk
the
about a
idea is
question.
So, can I continue? Is that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I was just a comment that I threw in, but I'm sorry for the interruption.
Oh, no worries. So the difference is that I think if you can tailor your service to the particular individual, your chances of growing your business are better than if you have the one size fit all.
True.
So the difference would be dining at McDonald's versus going to a fine restaurant where they know you the moment you walk in, they know they set the table for you, etc. You're more likely to return to that tailored experience than to just go to the faceless. Would you like fries with that sort of like anonymous service? That's the idea behind bots, right? That they would be growing and building relationship with individual customers and will learn all about them and will almost like read their mind and will offer things that will delight customers because their focus in life is to learn as much as possible and remember absolutely everything that happened during the interaction. Your apps are not doing that. They don't retain anything other than, okay, the stats that are important to business, how many orders, how many canceled orders, how many returned items, etc., etc. So this new iteration is actually much more complex, much more complicated, because it really now requires a lot of additional logic and additional skills that your software has to come up with to keep learning from each individual customer. And you can have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of customers. Each one will have a completely different pathway and experience with your business.
Which sounds really nice. It's the place where everyone knows your name, right? I heard you say something which is really interesting. You were referring to bots and you mentioned their purpose in life. And I think that's really interesting because you, whether it was intentional or not, were humanizing the idea behind the computer or program. So let's talk about that for a second. I'm interested to know your take on things like Hollywood. Okay, so we've got really great blockbuster films like The Matrix, artificial intelligence and human takeover versus, and then there's some positive spins out there too, like Star Wars or Interstellar, where there's these artificial intelligence whose purpose in life, as you say, is to serve humanity. So what do you feel about Hollywood? Are you on board with that? Do you like that influence? Do you think they take it way out of control? Does it hinder your cause, help your cause? Let's talk about that.
I think Hollywood would do anything that they think is going to make money, so they're various human emotions. Overall, I don't think it's either helping or constraining. It is good in the sense that it's making general population aware of the power that we can actually have with machines. But one thing that, for me personally, because I have a peek behind the curtain when it comes to bots and artificial intelligence. To me, it's less mystified than it would be for someone who is not privy to what's going on behind the scenes. So my take is that no matter how sophisticated this artificial intelligence get, it all boils down to something very mechanical. So at its essence, it is a very mechanical processing. There's nothing mysterious about it. And so many of the anxieties and fears and, oh my God, what if, are based on this mystified feeling, well, we don't understand how this works, and therefore, if it takes over, we have no idea how to deal with it. I'm less in that camp because it's like any other mechanical, even very, very elaborate mechanical contraption. It is, being mechanical, we can deal with it. What we can't deal with is something that we don't understand. And I'll give you an example. For example, a housefly or a mosquito, they have, on average, they have less than 1 billion neurons. Each individual bug, I think, on average, doesn't have more, like 700 million neurons, that range. And they use that processing power in their body with neurons and firing synapses. They're phenomenally skillful flyers. Like, if you ever try to catch a fly or a bee, they can avoid, they can navigate the space, they can land, they can take off. Incredible. Today, we have all the technology at our disposal, very affordable. To emulate that, we can easily emulate 700 million neurons firing. Yet we don't have artificial intelligence that we can put into a drone and make it fly as skillfully as a housefly, which to me, is indicating that we don't really understand what is it that makes houseflies so skilled. It's not just sheer number crunching. There's something else at play there that we don't understand. Otherwise, we would build it into all the flying objects. So what we can do is we can do a lot of mechanical things and do a lot of number crunching, but that's not, all of a sudden, doesn't mean that suddenly we have something that is completely, we cannot grasp, and we're at its mercy, which is what sometimes the Hollywood plays on that fear that, oh my God, this something comes up and we have no idea what it is, and it can totally like destroy us and do whatever it feels like. I don't suffer from those anxieties because I think but I mean, anything can be abused, of course, but as far as us being mystified and saying, oh, I have no idea what's going on here, I'm skeptical.
So that would be the goal.
That's the part.
Is that the future you see then? I mean, in the sense that if so many things become automated and we rely on bots to do so much for us, like a customer service line rather than a call center with actual people. So that workforce, that future, that humanity, do you think then that transition would be then for people to understand the mechanics behind computers? Like that's the shift, that's where we're going to be going from here on out, rather than the actual labor behind it? Like we're going to be forced to understand the mechanics behind programming and computers.
No, I don't think that's, because that is a very specialized, narrow field of study, and I don't think we can expect anyone to have to learn that. But we have to, talking to experts, we have to get it from them that things are not as mystical as they may appear, so that we can demystify and say, no, look, this is just a very mechanical, elaborate processing that is giving you this, appears like magic, but it's very, very deterministic, and we can reason about it, and it's easy to explain how does this work. So it's not like all of a sudden there's a big question mark and we're like, oh, well, I don't know how this came about. All of a sudden you're concerned because you're thinking, well, what's next? So far, everything we did is very deterministic, very mechanical. We can control it, we preside over it, and we make the call as to how we want to leverage it, right? And I think we need to stay on that course, and we need to try and demystify as much as possible and explain what's going on instead of leaving it to Hollywood necessarily to be the only arbiter, because like I said, I think they're just cashing in on various doomsday scenarios and apocalypse, etc. Also, you mentioned positive spin in Hollywood. That also could be an exaggeration, like the movie Her. I don't think, like, I'm not buying it. I don't think that's the case. But again, these are fantasies that we like to indulge in, relax. In real life, the whole point is about automating, and like we talked about, creating tailored services that are human-centric, and that I can compare that to car industry. Like when automobiles or motor cars, that they were called back 100 years ago, if you wanted to have a car, you had two choices. Either you buy a car and hire a chauffeur, or you yourself are a mechanic. So early drivers, you may have seen, had a toolbox next to their driver's seat, wearing gloves and goggles, and you really had to deal with the car, crank and all that. Today, so then the technology matured. Today, cars are like there's a start button and you just drive, or the next iteration will be self-driving car. But there's nothing mysterious about it. It's just that we have been, as technology matures, it's more and more bent towards humans, less and less towards geeks and mechanically minded people who are hobbyists, because these are the niche markets. And the idea is always to serve large markets. And today, majority of people don't care about, understanding how computers work or anything like that, but they appreciate services and technologies and devices that are very user-friendly and they don't require learning. So again, the difference between conversational commerce and the old school is, with the old school, you have to learn each new product you acquire. You have to learn how to use it, how to configure it, how to maintain it, how to update and upgrade. If you're chatting, you don't have to learn anything. You know how to chat with your friends. Same principle applies. Chatting, automated services in the messenger, for example, or SMS or any other channel. So that's pretty much how I would react.
Thank you.
Alex, I'd like to ask you a quick question, if I may, Kim.
Sure.
All right. And okay, this is about the human-centric part and the human interactions part. Just like humans, there's a lot of good humans out there, and and unfortunately, there's a whole bunch of bad humans out there too. And the same, I wonder if the same applies for malicious bots, like, or what are they and how can they be stopped, if there's such a thing?
Well, the idea with bots, again, is that, and I now remember I forgot his name, the person who invented the first cell phone back in the 70s. And recently, I think they had came in touch with him and were interviewing him, and he said, it's amazing how the mobile phones have evolved since he invented the first cell phone. But he says, one message I would like to leave with you is, whatever you do, whatever you build, make sure you always have an off switch. Everything must have an off switch. So that's mandatory, right? So same is with bots. Yeah, there may be malicious bots and God knows what else, but we should always be in the driver's seat. We should always be the ones who can say, stop, don't care about you, disengage, opt out. This is the prime directive, right, with any technology. As a consumer, I must be in the position that I can opt out. I can say, look, I don't want to hear from you ever again. Mm-hmm. And you're off, you're never again to be seen. Furthermore, I mean, this is tougher, but furthermore, we should also be ethical and offer the ability to everyone who is disenchanted or dissatisfied to say, not only don't ever call me, but I want you to remove all the information about me. Like any details you ever had with me, I want them gone. I think that is mandatory also for us if we're ethical and we are really trying to serve humans. Say, okay, you're not. Yes?
As I say, so it brings up an interesting side of this, which I hadn't thought of until now, with you speaking, is the idea of legislation behind bots and automated programming. Like, at what point will politics need to get involved and laws get involved for things like you're exactly just saying? It's an interesting debate because, I mean, right now, I mean, there's, for example, when you look at call centers and retail marketing and things like that, when you get called by banks or whatever, and you even ask, put me on the no-call list, I don't want to hear from you, and that operator on that call center many times apparently doesn't do as they're asked, because the next day, 2 days later, you're called again, even though there's legislation on that. So in that regard, I think it might be easier, I guess, to even control a computer than it would be to control the person. But let's talk about legislation. Like, are there laws, or what type of laws do you think would have to go into effect? Is that something that's coming up in the near future then?
I mean, we already have anti-spam laws in Canada, North America. I'm not sure about other parts of the world. And before I joined Staples, I was working for a large financial institution, and the penalties were like astronomical. If you as a as a business are trying to connect someone unsolicited calls via email or phone, and if that person complains, then the company is really severely penalized for that. Now, how that plays out in there, it's another problem because all these laws are fairly new and it takes a while for these things to settle. But I would assume that, and I don't know, I'm just speaking hypothetically, that the same applies to bots and any service that can potentially disturb your peace or like rattle your cage or yank your chain. You need to opt in. First of all, only by human making the first initial, hey, I'm interested in working with you, then the door opens. And then at any point in time, the human consumer must be in the driver's seat to say, okay, no more. Forget about it. I don't want to hear from you. And oh, by the way, I want you to delete any information about me. Like, I don't want you to have any ways that this ever happened. And I think this is human right that we need to exercise and insist upon. And it only makes sense. And we are, the owner, rightful owners, and we're in control, and we must insist that any boss to qualify to. It's almost like pharmaceutical companies who want to put medication on the market. You cannot just go and put medication on the market. You have to go through certain layers of approval. And I think the same thing must happen with these services, especially the ones that are like almost masquerading as humans. We need to give some ways to people to control how this interaction goes, not to be bullied by some automated services. Mm-hmm. But we used to be bullied a lot by telemarketing, calling all at all hours. Now it's simmered down. But we have the technology, we have ways to do all that, but we need to actually agree upon that and make it happen, right? Nobody else is going to do it for us. And people always try and find loopholes and aggressive business agendas and whatnot. That's not going to go away. People will use any channel, and of course bots will be the new probably big attractive channel, to aggressively bully others into parting with their money. That's capitalism 101. I mean, not new for us. So, but we need to understand how this works and how we can insist and push through legal channels and representatives and whatnot to make sure that we remain in the driver's seat and not end up being helpless victims of some aggressive, violent snake oil salesman.
I like that term. Hey, Alex, definitely. I have a question. From the engineering standpoint, you're a developer, and as such, I would like to ask you, since you're talking to a lot of people out there who are developers as well, regarding bots in the near future, what are some of the things that you could say that developers should be worried about regarding bots or concerned about in terms of adopting these technologies and so on and so forth, just working with them? What are some of the things that they should be worried or concerned about from the engineering standpoint?
Yeah, that's a great question. Excellent question. Thank you, Carlos. Right now, what I'm seeing is 100%, almost 100% of funding and focus and research is going into so-called natural language processing, or NLP for short, because it's a huge challenge. And that's great, but that eats up all the attention and all the focus from another, in my opinion, even bigger issue with bots, which is the workflow management. Because many bots, and again, we need to say that right now we're in the early infancy of the bots. So this is really early. The technology is still in diapers, so to speak, and is yet to mature. So many people that I'm seeing now are placing bots on the market which are very, very simple-minded, and I call them stateless bots, meaning these bots will take message from you and will try and reply, and then you send them another message, and they think you did it for the first time. They don't remember, they don't retain the state of the conversation. And consequently, they're incapable of dealing with any workflow. And workflow is we start a conversation, and then after a few steps, I may refer to something I mentioned five messages before, and then a bot will be able to remember that and also provide an answer taking into consideration everything that is transpired up until that moment. That is what I call the workflow, and that is something that to me looks totally neglected at this point, because everybody is concerned about, okay, now I have received a message. Let me see if I can really boil it down to what is the actual meaning of this message, which is the natural language processing. But even if you're flawless there, even if you totally figure it out, and any message that the human throws at you, figure it out, that's still just scratching the surface, because now the trick is, what do you do with that when you totally have cracked it and you say, okay, I know what this means. But if you are ignoring something that was said before, say for example somebody is trying to order takeout food, and they start the conversation with the bot and say, hi, blah, blah, blah. They may mention that they are vegans, for example. Then 5 steps down the road, the bot is offering them like juicy beef steak. Like, well, I told you I'm a vegan. Why are you showing me those pictures of steaks? That's where we are at this point, and it creates a poor and disappointing overall shopping experience. And I think we need to seriously start thinking about a workflow which will give you a reasonable experience, which then you will feel like, yeah, this is kind of the same as if I'm talking to a person on the phone. And they remember when I called first, I said, look, I'm allergic to dairy. I'm ordering pizza, but no cheese. And they will respect that, and will continue conversation with you having that in mind. I'm not seeing many bots nowadays that are capable of doing that. And I think this is the biggest kind of...
It's a good point for developers to take off their, like you said, the NLP blinders, the natural language processing, and maybe open it up to the NCP, which is the natural conversation processing. Which, going back to just your idea of conversational commerce, it needs to expand to that. That said, with the developers, and I have a question for you. You mentioned yourself that bots are in their diaper phase. Do you think that there's just a window of opportunity right now as far as bots are concerned, and that window could potentially close to the general public's interest if there's too many failed attempts before we get it right? I mean, so you have like Microsoft's Tay, for example, which caused some problems, or maybe somebody goes in and they're trying to, use some grocery shopping app or whatever it might be, and like you mentioned, but I told you I'm a vegan, stop offering me steak that's on sale. Like, at what point will people, the general public, just throw in the towel if developers can't get it right and just do it the old-fashioned way? Is that a concern?
Definitely, it is a concern, because we've already seen big hoopla around, for example, messaging bots. And today, I think they unveiled it in April. Today is August already. We've seen a lot of really, really bad, really lousy bots, and a lot of people got kind of disenchanted. But it's also kind of similar to what we've seen 20 years ago, when the first websites were incredibly clunky and not user-friendly, and you try and order something that breaks in the middle of it. And it was a very disappointing experience. So it is to be expected that immature technology will throw tantrums. And yes, we may we may throw the baby out with the bathwater, but I think the wave is unstoppable. So even people who got burned, eventually, slowly, when technology matures, will slowly keep coming back. But this is unavoidable. All I'm saying is, we cannot expect traction and adoption if those bots are behaving like toddlers and not remembering anything, not caring about anything, just pushing their agenda, and people get annoyed. Maybe some of you have already tried some of the bots that Facebook launched, like Poncho for weather, and they're really annoying because they just keep asking the same question over and over, like 50 times, and you look, okay, can you please stop? I want to ask you something else, and they're very like toddlers, right? Like terrible shoes, and that's bad. But that's how the cookie crumbles, right? On the other hand, it's undeniable that we're going through this land grab or the mad rush to stake your territory and grab the land. Essentially, everybody has to have a bot, but the question is, some of those are barren ones. It's but
So,
it is. Yes, sorry.
no, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I think there's a slight delay. I'm not interrupting you on purpose. I think that, so would that maybe be some of your advice for developers, would be just keep trying, learn from your mistakes, and the idea that I think really maybe it only takes one, like that one, even if people kind of, the general public gives up, if one bot has that great success of like, hey, this one's awesome, this one's actually working, it can revive the public in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I mean, you need success breeds success. You need evidence of success. Talking about it won't help. Nobody will. Talk is cheap. But if we ever get to the point where this one is really making a difference, then yeah, the sentiment will change in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen that happen in other areas. With, for example, when first iPhone got launched, and after the Apple App Store, it was a rocky ride at first, but then all of a sudden it exploded, right? It takes a little bit of a trial and error for things to kind of find their footing. Same is going to be with bots, and what I'm saying is sometimes it's better to measure twice, cut once, than just going to cut and see if it doesn't.
I like that a lot. We can apply that for all areas of our lives, not just developing measure twice, cut once. I love it.
But yeah, it costs extra money. It's going to take you longer. Measure twice. Take a deep breath. Measure again. And only when you're convinced it's a correct measure, then cut it, right? But another thing is with startups and venture capital money and aggressive agendas, it's all about launch, window of opportunities closing, and this kind of hectic activity, which can be damaging to the quality, right? So Alex, I think after this first, yes.
No, I'm sorry. I think I interrupted you. But no, I think did I interrupt you? Go ahead. Please finish.
Oh, yeah, no, I thought you were going to ask me.
Yeah, I do have a question, but I'll save it.
I think as developers, we've been through. Sorry, am I interrupting?
No,
I was just saying that this spring. No, I mean this spring we witnessed. I've seen a lot of people join the fray, and it's been sort of a honeymoon phase. And now I think honeymoon is over. Now we have to learn how to live in this union and mature and let it grow and let it mature and become what it is really. But we can't just continue being, head over heels and love all the time. Reality sets in, and we need to figure out how to do these things. And another thing that I want to mention is that there's you probably have heard this, that there's a crisis on the front of mobile apps, meaning studies have shown that the app stores are overflowing with millions and millions of 8 million of apps, which are most of them annoying, useless. People have reached the point where they don't want to download any new apps or try new apps. So on average, every person has maybe a handful of apps they're using on their smartphone. The rest is just being neglected. So what I think Facebook is doing with Messenger, they are actually rebooting the apps market. They call them bots, but they're actually mobile apps. And instead of having to download, you go to the App Store, download, install, configure, etc. You just go to the Messenger and you find this app. They call it bots, but they're really apps because you will recognize them because they work by offering you buttons and things to tap on. So they're not conversational. They're basically, they call them bots, but they're not. They're just apps in disguise, which is another stream. I call them apps 2.0. But the real bots are different. And the difference boils down to difference between self-serve and full-serve. So, for example, in the old days, before we had online commerce, if I want to travel somewhere, I will have to go to my travel agent and tell them, look, I have to go to New York. Can you book me a trip, etc. And then when the online commerce became ubiquitous, we stopped going to travel agent. We switched to using Expedia, for example. So now I'm trying to find good deals in Expedia. But what I'm actually doing is I'm doing self-serve. What I used to be served for, I used to pay for my ticket and hotel so that somebody who's an expert serves me. They find a good deal and they sell me the ticket and a hotel reservation. Now I'm doing it. Now I'm paying for the privilege of doing it myself. So I've been tricked. I've been duped into doing their job, but I'm not getting the cheaper deals, right? I'm paying. Sometimes I get even cheaper deals at the travel agent than I find in Expedia. Sorry. So that is what I call self-serve, being tricked into, and then not only do I buy, I have to find the deals, I have to purchase them online, but then on the day of when I have to travel, I have to remember to go and log in and choose or reserve a seat on the plane and all these things. So I'm doing a lot of chores, right? I'm actually busybody, and I'm doing the work that previously there were people paid to do that work, which is great for the air carriers because they cut on salaries for these people. But it's not good for me because I get very nervous about these things, and I'm all like riled. Oh my God, I have to remember to go and reserve the seat. So the difference now with bots is that the bot will be doing all that, not me. And so when people say, well, why did we abandon travel agents in the first place? Well, the reason is convenience, because travel agents have work hours, and after hours we can't talk to them. You have to drive to their office. With Expedia, it's 24/7. I can do it from my home at any time. So they're selling you that convenience, but it comes at a cost of me doing a lot of legwork, a lot of chores. So the idea with the bot now is that when you are hiring a bot in your employ, you're actually paying for the expertise, which is 24/7 at your disposal wherever you are. You don't have to go and visit. And same is with the medical bots, but lifestyle bots and all the other services that you could be actually buying full serve at your convenience. It's always by your side, wherever you are at any point in time, in the middle of the night. And that is the big promise of this new technology, because it helps us get rid of the self-serve and enjoy the privilege of having expertise full serve at our side, and hopefully, thanks to the economies of scale, at a fraction of a price.
So I think I was reading some of your blogs on Medium, and I think one of the examples that you used that really highlights what you discussed right now was the idea of an alarm clock on your cell phone. You said, okay, so like an app is I download the clock, I go in every night, oh, I need to wake up. Oh, tomorrow I actually need to give my coworker or my husband a ride to his office first because our car's broken down, so I need to get up a little earlier. I need to adjust that, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And even though I have the convenience of an alarm clock, I'm still having to do some work to adjust that app versus a bot, which would be like, wake me up at 5:40 instead of 6. Done.
Yeah.
So that's where we want to go versus me actually having to manipulate versus just serve me, do this.
The idea is to minimize number of steps and to delegate that to some reliable, affordable service, and just set it and forget it. That's the ideal scenario. That's where we want to get to that point where we have, like, if I want to hire a nurse to be by my side 24/7, I have to be wealthy. I cannot afford to have that. But if there is a bot with the same expertise that you can talk to, and because of the economy of scales, probably you can afford to hire that bot, because it will cost you maybe $50 per month versus 5,000 or something.
Big difference.
These are the scales that we're talking about, and the positive side of bots, right?
So how far out would you estimate we are from
The
that?
optimistic. I think we need to. I don't think we are far away from that, providing that somebody puts an effort. Like it's a vertical, right? If for example, I read this anecdote I'll share with you about one person who got not diagnosed, who couldn't be diagnosed. They had a very difficult digestive problem, which was debilitating to their life and career. And going to all the doctors, specialists, just could not be cured. It was getting worse and worse. Then this person heard about this service called Vida.com. And with Vida.com, you can subscribe to their service. Now they're human powered, so the subscription is not that affordable. So they have human experts on the team. But the point is that this person could report every step of the way, every meal he ate, and how he feels afterwards, and they slowly tweaked him into health. But the point is, you need to have an expert by your side every step of the way, which is super expensive, right? If there is now a medical institution or business that focuses all their effort in building such expertise and offering it on market, it's not a big stretch, because you can really program software to do these things that these experts were doing, because it's not rocket science. Basically, there is a number of, a knowledge base and a number of things that you can do, so that in the end you could offer a fairly reliable online service. And if there is economy of scales, it could become affordable, right? So you can pay like $9.99 per month, and you have your life coach next to you, and you can report anything that's going on, and you will get some kind of and then you can also, for additional fee, you can escalate to a human expert in case something is not clear to you, right? These things are kind of coming to us, that we hopefully will be able to hire different experts by our side and take advantage of their expertise without having to spend a lot of money to drive somewhere. And also, these people don't scale, right? So maybe you take a number, and maybe I'll call you next September or something like that, right? So that's where we see the convenience of this new technology, is in making it really ubiquitous and pervasive.
And I like the idea that you mentioned, you're complementing humanity, not replacing humanity. Like, there would essentially always be that need to have an actual person at some stage in the game if necessary, which I think alleviates a lot of that Hollywood-influenced fear, I think, that might exist when it comes to bot.
Like, true. What would you rather do for a living? Some menial tasks that are repetitive and soul-crushing, or let the bot do that? You sit next to the bot and you teach the bot how to get better and better in that. And now you are selling your expertise, selling your brain power, instead of selling your hand-eye coordination. So, that there is a possibility for this kind of disruption to be very positive for us, and kind of relieve us of the soul-crushing, menial, repetitive tasks that just like make life meaningless, and give you an opportunity to start thinking and be more respected for your expertise and get involved in those. Yeah, because these bots will need trainers. These bots will need, because there's always garbage in, garbage out. If you feed the bot some crap, then they will behave in a completely idiotic way. So somebody will always have to be there to say, no, no, this is wrong, this is right. No, you're not correct here, this is correct. And you need human expertise. You need common sense for that.
And to
Machines
have
are not going to bootstrap.
and to have the satisfaction of the scalability that you mentioned. Like, by me working with this bot, instead of being able to reach 10 people a week, 100 people a week, I'm helping 10,000 people a week.
Yeah. Yeah, now you're changing lives.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you know, I think the fear that Hollywood sometimes is peddling, not only Hollywood, but that machines will somehow magically bootstrap themselves into this common sense. That's not going to happen. I mean, it's not going to happen spontaneously because machines do not. I don't want to go into philosophical part, but the clincher always comes to, okay, here's an issue. It has to be resolved in a common sense fashion. You always need human intervention. You always need somebody to step in and say, no, go this way, not that way. Why? Because I say so. and that's the training part. That's supervision that I think if everything goes okay, this is going to be future jobs for many of us, is to preside over this machinery and to make it better and better and more useful.
Like parenting.
That's me being a parenting. Yeah, sure. No, don't.
Like what, Kim?
Yeah, this is me being optimistic.
Like parenting, I say.
Oh, parenting. Okay. I think you nailed it. You nailed it, Kim. Okay, Alex and Kim, sorry to interrupt, but I think we need to wrap up the session. What I would like to ask you finally, Alex, is any final words of wisdom for our viewers out there regarding what's in store for for bots and their role in whatever's going on in especially in this part, the so-called the screenless user interfaces. You know, that part is kind of intriguing as well. So I don't know if you want to leave us and our audience with some, like I said, final words of wisdom. What's in store? What's next?
Yeah, that's thanks for reminding me, Carlos. I think when we came up with screens, and I'm talking about screens in the context of computers, because screens were invented more than 100 years ago for projecting moving pictures to the movie theaters. And then screens have traditionally always been meant for consumption. So you sit back and you watch a movie, you watch a slideshow, etc. And as I mentioned at the beginning, when we wanted to popularize computers and make them move into every household, we needed to use screens for interaction because we could not expect people to memorize all these complex commands. And we reached a point today where we can touch things on the screen and make things happen. But that is actually very cumbersome. And the screens are not meant for interaction, I think. They're meant for consumption. We interact by talking. And we've been now seeing emerging technologies such as Amazon Alexa and Siri, Cortana, where they're getting really good and they're going to get much better. Where you can actually tell Alexa or Echo for Amazon, show me this movie, play this movie, and you play it on the screen. Mm-hmm. Show me this map. Play me this slideshow. You don't have to actually touch things on the screen. You say what you want, and then these things materialize on the screen, and you consume them. So that's where a lot of these advanced technological advancements are going to go into this kind of voice-activated, voice-controlled, and we call it screenless interface because we are not interacting via screen, we're interacting via voice control. And voice gets transformed in the background into text. So we're back to your conversational text-based interface. That's where I see so my parting words would be for maybe to think about not necessarily expecting everything to be touchscreen or mouse clicking and dragging on the screen. Think more in terms of how we are getting things done by talking, by phoning someone, by texting, how we express our need to get something done by human beings of interaction, not learning how to operate some machinery or how to pull some levers or push some buttons.
Mhm.
Um, that's what I think, because we've been conditioned now
Yeah.
to expect everything has to be accomplished via pushing something or touching something, and
Yeah.
that is slowly changing. So I think people should start expecting that and not be surprised, like, oh, I don't like this, or be put off. Because once you try it a few times and all that, you realize it is actually a more intuitive and more pleasant way of getting things done.
Yeah. And
That's
then,
my take on it.
and with that line of thought, then pretty soon we're going to be stepping into, I don't know, things like um hacking drones with the mind or something like that, right? And it's something it's something that I heard, mind hacking. And actually, we're going to have a conversation with another speaker pretty soon, and in this particular area, and it has to do with mind hacking and neuro something, these weird terms that highly technical people use. But we're going to save that for a future time because I don't want to spoil the surprise. But hey, listen, Kim and Alex, I really want to thank you for having agreed to be here with us today. It was a hell of a talk. And Alex, is there do you have would you like to share with our audience out there your how can they contact you? How can they reach you? Your Twitter handle? Uh, now's the time. So
It's just my, yes, simple. My Twitter handle is my first name and last name, no dot, no nothing.
okay.
Just Alex Bunardzic.
Actually, it's right here. You can see it.
Same as with.
Yeah, let me just type it here. It's Alex, just like your name and your last name, right?
Yeah, no dots in between, just straight.
Okay. Okay. Here it is, folks. If you want to get in touch with Alex, it's right here. Twitter at Alex Bunardzic. And there you have it, folks. Again, Kim, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
My
Yeah.
pleasure, Alex. It's my pleasure, and thank you. And it's a pleasure to meet you. Learn
And
from you.
Thank you so much. This was very pleasant for me, and I really enjoyed it. Thanks.
likewise, Alex. Thank you again, and you have a great day, and we'll be in touch.
Take care.
Bye.